And that would be a big challenge for President Macron, and that came after a flurry of diplomatic contacts over the weekend, where Emmanuel Macron spoke to all the head of states of the Baltic states, UK's Boris Johnson, the Secretary General of NATO, and last night as well, President Biden, of course, reflecting the multilateral approach to this crisis, and tried to agree on unity in the response and the dialogue with Russia on the conditions for de-escalation and also the potential sanctions if there was an aggression on Ukraine. And in what spirit is President Macron going to Moscow? We had a glimpse of this, as you say, in an interview published in Le Journal du Dimanche this weekend. He had a very conciliatory tone in part of this interview, including making comments such as it is legitimate for Russia to raise the issue of its own security concerns. So that will raise some eyebrows with some more hawkish partners, including the US or the UK or some Eastern European countries. But that goes along the line of what Emmanuel Macron has been doing with Vladimir Putin and Russia over the past 5 years of his mandate. He's tried to row Vladimir Putin. He invited him to Versailles, invited him to his summer residence, and some say it was a bit of a naive approach in those ways to handling Russia. But look, President Macron wants to try, and there's been some small victories on the way. There's been the restarting of the Normandy talks, so that's between Germany, France, Russia and Ukraine, and discussing the Minsk agreements, of course, about the Donbass region. And while these talks haven't been held for 2 years, they started again a couple of weeks ago on the advisors level. There'll be another meeting this week in Berlin. So there's a small, narrow path of reopening the dialogue with Russia, putting some things on the table to try to keep the dialogue going and try to avoid a wider conflict. Of course, it's brought a European voice to the table. Up until now, it was very much a US-Russia issue and conversation, and that has really brought the European voice to the table, of course, in line with his strategic sovereignty view that he has for the bloc. So it is a big gamble. He hasn't gained much from Vladimir Putin up until now. It's also a personal risk because, of course, we know he's not yet declared candidate to a presidential election in less than 10 weeks. So it's a big gamble for himself, of course, extremely important in this geopolitical situation. It could be a very public failure as well for Emmanuel Macron. So very interesting to see what is happening, this tete-a-tete between Macron and Putin this afternoon. There'll be no advisors in the room, just these two and a translator. So very crucial to watch today's conversation and tomorrow President Zelensky.